Hello, everyone. Welcome back to This Week in Guns. It's powered by Second Amendment Foundation and brought to you by Patriot Patch Company, VZGrips, MAF Corporation, and Primary Arms. The show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Matthew Rosier, and I'm joined by someone far away. Let's see if we can get the binocs up. Oh!
They've spotted me.
It's a spinning rat.
Surprise, surprise.
Deeply entertained. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. This week has been interesting and productive and fun. Those are my 3 week words.
That sounds like a big week, man. It's been quite an experience for me. I have been all over the place. I had a lot of work travel.
That's true. You're almost out of Florida for a week, which means that you wouldn't even smell like Florida anymore.
Which was just completely unacceptable for me. I'm sure you can understand.
That's true.
Yep. But yeah, I'm back here. So at first I was, actually no, I forgot where I went first, but then I went to Washington, D.C. to speak before Congress, which we'll talk about. I had a nice time.
Yeah.
Then Alabama to speak at the State Libertarian Party caucus thing. That was fun. They fed me. Then I went to Nashville, and literally the day I go there, Las Vegas happens. Notably.
Yeah, they actually had Las Vegas in Nashville.
Right, and they called it Nashvegas. There was a notable Nashvegas that happened while I was there. I tried the chicken and determined that we actually have better Nashville chicken in Florida. But
Tennesseans on suicide alert.
But yeah, now I'm back. So let's get into it. But first up, let's talk about this Congress hearing. And we talked last time. I got invited from this show, and
I don't think they're gonna have you back. If you guys are watching this, you should have them back just for fun.
I mean, they were really nice. I met the staffer that actually invited me. Her dad watches my channel, so hey, Dad.
Hey, you're a cool dude. You know what?
You're a cool dude. Thanks.
I don't care what they say about you. You're cool.
Thanks for literally turning me into a meme. But but I did have fun. I'd love to come back if you'll have me after what happened. But anyway, yeah, the hearing was called ATF's Assault on the Second Amendment. When is enough enough? And I had written I have my written testimony I submitted a while before, which I'm very proud of.
It was a masterclass, truly.
And not in no small part because, as we can see here, I stuck a Draco post.
He stuck a whole ass Draco post right inside of his testimony.
Yeah. From a business perspective, as firearms technology has advanced, the need for long barrels to achieve useful velocities has fallen largely by the wayside. Firearms like the Romanian-made AKM-based Draco pistol are an exceptional choice for home defense and are relied upon by a great many Americans. The addition of a brace to a Draco or similar yields what is likely the most optimal choice for an all-round defensive firearm. The market clamors for these firearms, and the industry has noticed. As a result, many small dealers have these firearms in stock and have been put in an awkward position by the ATF's reason about face. Stuck with thousands of dollars of inventory, they are afraid to sell in the configuration demanded by the right-willed consumer. These actions destroy value with no countervailing public safety benefit to speak of. So yeah, whole Draco post. So yeah, it was good. I went up there, gave my little spiel. I was with Alex Bosco, the SB Tactical guy, and Amy Swear, who's with Heritage. Amy Swear and I were actually in the same incubator program when we first got out of law school. She's a pretty cool person, but I had given my whole spiel. The chairperson struggled with my last name so much when he gave me time to speak. He said, "I will now hand the floor to my French friend." which was funny. But yeah, so I got virtually no questions for a long time. And it actually, at one point, it got supremely interrupted. And people who were watching the stream were like, what the heck is going on? So I had a front row seat to this. At some point, this it was this couple, what's their name?
Are they Oliver? Last name?
Yeah. Patricia. Yeah, Patricia Oliver. Oliver was the last name. Stands up to say, you took my son away from me, and, blames the whole thing on the committee chair for whatever reason, refused to leave the hearing. And this is all happening actually right behind my back. So I just turned around watching this as they just refuse to leave. And the chairman's like, hey, can you please remove them? There was one Capitol police officer there because everyone was at the TikTok hearing. So like all of the Capitol police were watching over the TikTok hearing. So there was this one overweight Capitol police officer.
It's like, of course I have to be in here.
Yeah, he was sitting there. He's like, come on, man. Like, please. They're like, and they're playing musical chairs, shuffling around. And as they try to get him out, the Mr. Oliver starts like lashing out and attacking again this one overwhelmed, upset Capitol police officer. And there was a lot of sound happening. Of course, no one was really like hurt, but there was a total melee happening. And I didn't realize that they had cut off the cameras to the stream. So after this happens, I check my phone and I've got all of these panic text messages from my wonderful girlfriend who's like, what's happening? They cut off the cameras and all I can hear is like shouting. And I was like, LOL, there is a battle, which didn't help. It took me giving more details till she felt better. But yeah, so that happens. And then after they arrest the man and they're ready to reconvene the hearing, his wife just steps back into the room and announces, I'm back. Just like, and he's just like, damn it. He's like banging his little gavel. He's like, please remove her, please. Like, I just want to get this going on. It was the most ridiculous shit. But yeah, so that's what happened. Fast forward when the hearing reconvenes, I'm just sitting there hanging out, having a good time. I answered a couple small questions. And then a particular Congress lizard from Illinois.
Yeah, the great shithole wasteland of Illinois.
Yeah. Calls out to me. He's like, Mr. LaRosiere. And I'm like, yeah, you have a YouTube channel, right? And he pulls out this like huge foam cutout of my YouTube channel. And he holds this shit up for like a long time.
Play the clip.
Mr. LaRosiere, you have a YouTube channel called FUD Busters, isn't that right?
Oh, I see you're a fan.
I actually have a screenshot right here.
Thank you.
This is your YouTube channel, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And FUD Busters is kind of your handle for YouTube and social media, isn't that right?
For YouTube, correct.
Okay. And you have a similar account for Twitter with FUD Busters, correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, we went back and looked at your Twitter history on FUD Busters. Can you hold that, please? And this is what we found. Can you see this tweet?
Yes, I can.
This is from January 27th, 2023 at 7:51 p.m., where you said something very, very disturbing. Mm-hmm. What were you thinking when you wrote that statement?
I was very upset about the very public execution of an individual, but I don't think that that's the subject of this hearing.
Those are your words, right?
Oh, yes, they are.
Correct. I find these deeply offensive as somebody who believes very much in protecting law enforcement, not attacking them. Mr. Wilcox, what's your reaction to this particular tweet by Mr. Larosiere?
I find the words offensive. I think it is an attack on law enforcement. And to the subject of this hearing, we need to be supporting agencies like ATF who are doing the work on the front lines, not threatening to abolish or defund them.
And certainly not this, probably, too.
No, sir.
You know, Mr. Chairman, I just respectfully submit that when we talk about law enforcement in this way, using such epithets about them, that we are really harming public safety, not enhancing it. And Mr. Larosiere, this is deeply, deeply disturbing conduct. Thank you so much, and I yield back.
But yeah, so what did he expect me to say? It's like, dude, I'm a defense attorney. What do you want me to do? Kneel down and lick the boots that are crushing my clients?
Thank you, cops, for giving me work. I mean, maybe, but like, come on, really?
Would you hire a defense attorney that was a blue liner?
Depends on who I'm getting defended from, but probably not.
Right. Yeah. So, and then you look at their own Twitters. So I'm thinking, wow, yep, I'm screwed. And then like 10 minutes later, I check my phone and I had gained 5,000 followers. And this dude is getting ratioed in his own district. Like, liberals are saying, of all of the things you could question that guy on, this is what you pick? Why do you support Tyre Nichols' murder?
Yeah, so it was weird because like this guy's own tweet about, this guy's own tweet in reaction to the Tyre Nichols body cam footage was like, oh, this is horrible. This is really bad. And then like somebody condensing that down to like fuck cops or whatever. Right. He called it extremely offensive and concerning.
Yeah, very disturbing.
It undermines public safety because people won't trust the cops if they read 2 words.
No.
Meanwhile, I, as a dizzy rat, would posit that perhaps the reason that people may not feel so much trust in the police might have to do with the fact that the police would restrain someone and then beat him to death over a span of 10 minutes or so. Right. I would think that maybe undermines the public safety a little bit. But what do I know? I'm just a dizzy rat.
Well, and then he asks the guy from Everytown, what do you think of this tweet? It's like he was so uncomfortable. Partly because Everytown in 2021 took the very firm position that police violence is gun violence. We need to make a lot of changes, blah, blah, blah. He just goes, it's an attack on law enforcement.
Boo, like, the poor law enforcement.
It's like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. God forbid the defense attorney recognizes that we are in active, open conflict with law enforcement. We are. We have been for decades. Sorry about it, guys. Many, many decades. I would say even before the Prohibition era. They want to kill you. In most of the country, I understand some of you guys might be out there living in places where it's like, oh, no, my cousin Randy's a cop and blah, blah, blah. He said they're not, whatever. But in most of the country, they have a policing philosophy where they will intentionally have police officers from outside of district to make sure that they are not too compassionate with the community. The job of police officers now is to find and arrest you in the United States. It is not to protect and serve or in any way. That said, we will be covering some actions by law enforcement later in this show that were notably clean and commendable. So, I will be fair, but let's be real, man. I mean, I decided I wasn't going to be a politician, so I'm happy to say it. The police are in open conflict with the people of the United States. If they weren't, would they be arresting people still for marijuana charges and stuff like that? It's very clear what public opinion is on marijuana prohibition, and yet we see violent and aggressive enforcement of such laws.
Or perhaps if they weren't, you wouldn't gain 5,000 followers. It seems like at least some certain part of the online or the online community or general public seems to have struck a nerve in a positive way with them.
Yeah, it's almost as if it backfired. And it's almost as if I am now emblazoned to tell the truth even harder.
Oh no, you've outed me as being who I am.
Well, guess what? This is how I think. And do I think most law enforcement officers want to be in open conflict with their communities? Probably not. It's probably very uncomfortable. And it's probably why they're so scared that they're constantly pissing themselves while shooting at us. But that's the situation that the politic lizards have forced them to be in. So I'm trying to find that picture. Oh, here. And this was fun. When I went to speak at the libertarian thing, they gave me a gift. They gave me the tweet.
There you go. That's important.
Yeah, right there. That made me very happy. Yeah.
That's a life achievement award.
Yep. Life achievement award. I got the tweet. But anyway, so yeah, it was fun. I got to make a meme. There was a lot of good memes made from it, and I had a nice time. Thanks, guys, for turning me into a meme. But next up, Florida has okayed a bill that would allow you to carry concealed guns without a permit.
Oh my goodness! Oh my gosh! This is the end of us public safeties.
Yep. I hate news websites where it's like, how many times do I have to close that little stupid video player before you get the hint? Floridians will be able to carry concealed guns without a permit under a bill the legislator sent to Republican Governor Donald DeSantis. The governor, who was considering a presidential run, has said the issue, it's one of his priorities. Senate passed the bill in a 27 to 13 vote. Will allow anyone who can legally own a gun in Florida to carry one without a permit.
That's not true, though, is it? You didn't change. You didn't change how the bill worked.
Yeah, no, it actually still works exactly the same. No, because previously you had to also specifically have a desire to carry a firearm, and they took that out if you don't want a permit. But if you're going to get a permit, you still have to have a desire to carry a firearm.
I desire gun.
But yeah, so I came out against this bill. I still don't support the bill. I think it made some odd and pernicious changes to the definitions of some firearms that carry other consequences elsewhere in the law. I explain all of that in my bill titled, in my video titled, Florida's concealed carry bill is full of weird garbage. And I talked to some Florida lawmakers, and I found out where all of that weird language came from. What association do you think helped draft that bill?
Oh boy. A lot of it feels NRAE.
Sheriff's Association.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Similar veins of fuckery then.
Yep. But yeah, so, and a lot of people were upset. Most people were upset about the lack of open carry, and people kept on like getting on me. You didn't even mention that the bill doesn't allow open carry. It's like, yeah, because it wasn't ever going to do that.
Right.
Like that wasn't what was happening. But DeSantis is now saying he would consider a special session to address open carry if he can get the votes, which is, for those of you who don't know, that's politics lizard for I'm not doing that. Speaking of Florida politics lizard, you know what is not run by Florida politics lizards? VZGrips.com. It's available. X-Tac Wilson Combat X9 Slant 1911 new grips. These grips are made of the patented G10 alloy. That's patented if you live elsewhere, or patent if you live here, because our language is a mutt one that doesn't make any sense. Most popular guns, 1911 revolvers, Beretta CZ75 categories. I'm just going to sit there and tell you guys that I carry VZ grips. I enjoy the way they feel on my hand, and I enjoy the way you can engrave an anime girl into the side of them and still get superior grip performance. VZ Grips is a Florida-based corporation that has good prices excellent products, and honestly, you can fall down on them, you can sweat on them, you can pee your pants, and they will still grip really good. And if for those of you who watch this show, if you want your gun to grip good, almost as good as my gun, you'll never get it quite there. But if you want it to be almost as good as my gun with VZGrips, go ahead and use promotional code THISWEEK15 and get yourself 15% off on some of the finest VZGrips available in Florida from this website. So please check them out.
If you're gonna permitless carry in the great state of Florida, what better than a grip made in the great state of Florida?
That's true.
That might be a legal requirement in the bill. I'm not gonna read it or nothing, but because this is a gun channel on YouTube, you don't have to read the bill. You can just guess. So I'm gonna guess and say that as a fact, if your gun and grips weren't made in Florida, you can't carry them in Florida.
Yeah.
Shocking. Ron DeSantis, Supreme Court on fire.
Yeah, Ron DeSantis, Supreme Court on fire. Joe Biden licking ice cream cone. Yeah, Florida makes it illegal to carry without VZGrips. Protect yourself now. Buy low. Buy. VZGrips.com. Promotional code ThisWeek15. They support the show. You can support your grips by buying the grip. Okay? All right. So yeah, as I just got a text message. You're going to love this. How do I keep my PLA from going bad? I bought a really big spool.
Huh. Dehumidify that bitch.
Yeah, and also don't do that.
Don't get this spool are we talking? 10 kilograms? 100 kilograms?
Yeah, the PLA spool, it was like on one of those wire spools. You know, the ones we turn into benches.
Yeah, or at the airsoft field. They always have them at airsoft fields.
Always have them at airsoft fields. So yeah, next up, while I was in Nashville, I was not looking at the news. I was at the Parthenon. I was looking at other Nashville things such as Hattie B's, which was not very good compared to how we do it here. But my phone started lighting up. And of course, it was because there was a notable Nashvegas that happened. So this has probably been one of the most, like, how do we say it? Because everyone's always obsessed with the demographics, right?
Or the culture war.
Yeah,
the culture warist.
Yeah. This is the most demographically interesting one. Heavily armed 28-year-old. And all of the news agencies are very, like, hesitant to explain this. So this was a trans man. So it was a female to male person transitioning, 28 years old, who used to go to this Christian school, who had written this manifesto saying, you know, that they were going to go on this killing spree. Go into this school, private school, kill 3 students and 3 adults, which is very terrible, and was very quickly met by Nashville law enforcement. And I will tell you, they released the body cam videos. Did you see those? Did you see the body cam videos?
I watched the body cam videos through. It was pretty, you know, from a standpoint of like what you want to see from a response from, you know, any sort of armed defender or responder. It was pretty impressive.
Pretty clean. It was like, hey, Coward County, you have like 10 times the budget of these guys. And I wonder how much of it is that, you know, these are country boys, right, that actually care about using firearms proficiently. But they were cross-clearing rooms, perfect communication.
And they were moving fast.
Going fast, right?
Like there was not much hand sitting on going on. It was, you know, door to door to door until they heard the shooter shooting on the second floor. And they say, I think that's from the second floor. And they find a stairwell and boom, they're all up the stairwell.
So actually, and the thing is, because some people were criticizing, because the first body cam video was the guy with the LPVO and his AR-15 showed him clearing methodically the first floor to get to the main stairwell to go up. What that cuts out is the other body cam video from the handgun wielding officer, who actually, they knew it was on the second floor, immediately tries to get to the second floor through a stairwell that was by the entrance, but it was locked off. So that's when he came down and you know, told them to push up through the center. And then naturally, what the right thing to do when you're in that situation, you can't leave your back open. So they super fast and super cleanly, with great teamwork and great communication, cleared that whole hallway before going up the stairs, and just super fast and like with just really, really professionally done. And also not even excessive amounts of violence, if that makes sense.
It wasn't like everybody gets there and everybody wants to get a shot in like it's Osama bin Laden or hunting. Right. But the officer that hit him first hit him 4 times, were fired 4 times. It looked like maybe 2 hit, and then maybe 2 were, you know, because they're on their way down. Right. And then you know, then the shooter was then on the ground, sort of doing the floppy thing that happens whenever you're on the ground. Right. And then you know, one officer mistook their arms sort of flopping to where they were going to be for reaching for the gun, because the arm flopped in that direction. They shot him a couple more times with a handgun. But so sometimes you see people with like a little bit lower training standards whenever they get to the moment of it's time to shoot. Like everybody wants to take a turn shooting them, and everybody wants to shoot a lot. Right. But there was like none of this on display. Like it was like almost movie level. Everybody knew what they were doing. Yeah, like eerily clean. So don't say that I only ever dump on cops. It's mostly ever. Those Nashville boys did pretty decent. That was it was pretty impressive. Like I started watching the body camera footage, not sure what to expect, because they released it fast, you know, faster than body camera footage is usually released. So I guess that may have indicated that that their own departments thought they did an okay job, but they certainly did. Everything about it seemed like they knew what they were doing. No, that was probably their department's going, "Oh, everybody got to see this." Yes, this is flawless. Post it. Yeah, post. But yeah, so anyway, that's horrible. Again, it's, if only it could have been faster, right? And I mean, you know, as far as police response times goes, I've seen conflicting things. They either were all said and done in 14 minutes, or they showed up in 14 minutes, and 4 minutes later they were all said and done. But either way, you know, that's really quick for a police response. Was it like three minutes some odd? Something like that. Yeah. After they showed up, but I wasn't sure if 14 minutes was from the time they were called, or, you know, because it's always hard to track that stuff down. I'm sure that in the coming days it'll be better understood. Right. But it was a fast response time either way. But then I saw a lot of people giving commentary to the effect of like, this was really fast response time, and these cops did an incredible job. Yeah. However, that was still 14 minutes, maybe more, that people were, you know, stuck there with no way to effectively defend themselves. Right. If we want to take a serious look at how we make these things less awful, there might be an answer in, you know, the competent people aren't just cops, right? And we saw with Uvalde especially. Just because you're a cop doesn't mean you're a competent person when it comes to these sorts of events. And so we also saw that in Parkland, right? Right. I think there's been a little bit more of a coherent call here, and seeing it some at the congressional level too, which is nice, the federal congressional level, where there's somewhat more of a coherent call, where it's like, we're not necessarily saying all teachers should be trained with guns and know how to use them. But very often you see teachers who know how to use guns with varying degrees of proficiency, but most of the time, at least some of the time, better than cops. Be they veteran teachers. You know, I had a teacher who was a veteran, then became a cop, then became a teacher, and he had all sorts of, you know, his marksman qualifications and had won pistol shooting matches across the country. Like, the sort of person that if the school started getting attacked, you would want him to have a gun. And you know, certainly, at least if you ask me, no, that's ridiculous. Certainly, if you ask me, there should be a federal regulatory exception, and you can set with some silly bar of training or certificates they have to get or whatever. But generally speaking, I think the way it should work is if they can lawfully carry a gun. Otherwise, you can defer to the state's laws as far as what goes there. If they're a teacher at the school itself can require that they say that they're doing this. But you know, people who are trusted to carry these guns in public probably ought to be allowed to carry them to defend, and not necessarily the children, right? Because that's what people say is, well, teachers have so much to worry about. Now they have to worry about defending kids. I don't think that's necessarily the argument, because like the teacher should be able to defend themselves, right? Right. We shouldn't discourage teachers from wanting to teach for fear of their own lives because they're surrounded by soft targets. They should be able to defend their own life too. Yep.
They do have a life. I read it. I read that one.
Sometimes.
I may not have believed that when I was in school.
But that's the thing. Like whenever you're in like kindergarten to third grade, whenever you learn your teacher has a first name.
Oh man.
Like, oh, you're a person. Whoa.
Do you have a house?
That was always the weirdest stuff. Do you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Oh,
icky. Well, anyway, moving on. These headlines, dude. Trump indicted. U.S. gun injuries surged during pandemic. More of today's top news. So yeah, that was today's big news. Of course, we know about the Trump indictment. It's like 30. Yeah,
30-something counts, which include felonies. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see where that goes, but I'm betting it that the reports that it is political theater are probably true. And then
we even got Ron DeSantis being like, "Oh, Florida won't send him out." It's like, wow, yeah, thanks. Did we ask? It's kind of not how it works, actually.
Supposedly, Trump's lawyers have said he'll turn himself over anyway. So
right, because I don't expect that this is going to.
It probably won't, and it'll probably end up benefiting him in the long run, because they'll point to Trump's tweets and say, "Is this your Twitter? Did you tweet this?" And Trump will be like, "Yeah,
yeah, I did it," and then he'll gain 5,000 Twitter.
He will get 5,000 new followers as a result.
He'd probably get a little boost.
6,000.
Yeah. So yeah, CDC study. Gun injuries in U.S. surged during pandemic. For every American killed by gunfire, an estimated 2 or more survive, often with terrible injuries. Fact that public health experts say is crucial to understanding the full impact of guns on society. It highlights just how violent America's recent past has been by showing a surge in gunfire injuries during the COVID-19 pandemic, when the number of people fatally shooting each other and themselves also increased by a tiny amount. Again, like 2 times bugger all is 2 bugger alls. Number of people injured by gunfire was nearly 40% higher in 2020 and 21 compared to 19. They said in 2020 it tapered off, but we're still 20% higher than before the pandemic. And again, rules of small numbers,
right?
But again, lies, damn lies, and statistics. I'll have you. So yeah, that was something. But next up, it's plug time. But yeah, so as we talked about my congressional testimony, just before that, I was named an adjunct scholar of law and policy at the Second Amendment Foundation, which is the official National Gun Rights Organization of Fudbusters. It's like we'll put that on our race car. But yeah, guys, SAF is a great group. They are pushing real hard, really carefully thought out lawsuits, and helmed by people who actually own and use guns, which is something that is rare to see in the national gun rights space. For nearly 50 years, the Second Amendment Foundation has been fighting for your Second Amendment rights, having been involved in over 250 cases with an active litigation load of over 40 lawsuits. SAF has the expertise and experience necessary to fight government overreach and challenge unconstitutional laws. SAF, winning firearms freedoms one lawsuit at a time. To learn more or donate, check out the link in the description or go to bit.ly/SAF Busters. That's capital S, capital A, capital F as in Foxtrot, capital B, USTERS. You should know how to spell Busters. You got here, didn't you? Come on now. But yeah,
this is your YouTube channel, correct?
It is. I see you're a fan. But yeah, guys, become a part of the most efficient pro-gun rights group. That's the Second Amendment Foundation. So next up, we're going to talk about something that was brought up continuously. Continuously did I hear this being shouted by the congressional lizards while they were making their little speeches, right? Because they don't actually talk to anyone or ask any questions. They sit down, they do their little thing so they can get a YouTube clip for their whatever that, I don't know. They kept saying the leading cause of death for children, the babies in the United States, is guns. Now, what do you immediately take from that? as a person of logic.
As a person of logic, you would assume that people between the age of like what 5 and 18. I guess children may include toddlers. I forget how that dichotomy breaks down, but so people younger than 18, let's say, right, or the leading cause of death for them would be gun violence. And of course, gun violence is that perpetually confusing term where they use the word violence to make you think, ooh, people shooting people. But gun violence statistics inevitably include people shooting themselves.
And are primarily made up of the same. But where it's the leading cause of something, and we know what we know about firearm violence, even including, self-harm, it tells me that, thankfully, not that many kids are dying.
Right.
and that's exactly what the fact is. And so there's another story that's like been going around to the rags, right? Because in the US, more likely to die by guns than anything else. Guns have been the leading cause of death for kids and teenagers in the US since 2020. In 2021, guns have accounted for nearly 19% of childhood deaths, roughly 3,600 kids. Country,
statistically speaking, that's not a lot. But
country of 300 million.
And now that statistic, though, I saw, I think it was Amy Swear was breaking that statistic down because, of course, she was there at that same hearing and listening to this over and over. And what she was saying was that the statistic includes 19-year-olds.
Right. And
I've seen past breakdowns on this statistic where it's like, that sounds like a very big number, but something like 90% of the people included in that 3,600 are between 16 and 19. Where it's like all people who become old enough that they can drive, which means that they're old enough to do, illegal street hoodlum stuff like
Draco behavior,
people, right? Draco type behavior, and so they get themselves.
Sometimes it's not cool. What they were doing is not cool, but most Draco behavior is cool.
Sometimes people get 16 and they're able to drive or whatever, and then they end up hanging out with a bad crowd or what have you, and that. They predispose themselves as being more likely to violence by being involved with drugs or being involved with gangs or whatever else. And that the overwhelming number of these kids that end up being taken by gun violence or whatever, or because of intentional choices that they make. Now, of course, they may be living in conditions where like their options are homelessness or being in a gang, right? And of course, I'm sympathetic to that argument, but the sort of underlying, like with most of these statistics that seem like, wow, that's really weird. Well, it's because they're including 19-year-olds in that the vast majority of these kids being killed by gun violence are either drop out of school or truant to the point of like,
it's mostly self-harm, and
yes.
But that's the major thing, right? That we can't go. It's mostly self-harm, and especially, oh geez, why would a teenager engage in self-harm in the year 2020 or 2021?
Well,
I cannot imagine why. I cannot imagine.
Certainly not.
Right. So I don't know. Peace from that, what you will, oh brave rats. But yeah, so that's just so annoying. It's just ridiculous. Next up, we got a story from the Huffington Post. We got a story from the Huffington Post. Mr. Carlson, he went and said it. That's what they said. He made a disturbing prediction in a rant against gun control. Carlson went straight to civil war as he forecast what the U.S. would look like with gun control. Wednesday night's broadcast, the Fox News host waded into the gun control debate, which flared up again this week in the wake of a mass shooting at a Nashville, Tennessee school. Did it really? I mean, I didn't see much. Anyway. Carlson mentioned a statistic often touted by gun control proponents that there are more civilian-owned firearms in the U.S. than people. He said, that's true. Ask yourself, what would it require to confiscate all those guns and all that ammunition and turn the United States into a disarmed nation like Turkmenistan or North Korea? Well, it would take a police state and it would end in civil war. No sane person wants either one of those things, but thankfully, we don't need them. And of course, what did like honest journal lizards do? They just go straight to, Tucker Carlson said he wants civil war.
Yeah, that's what he wants.
Yep.
And of course, deep down, approaching this at face value and not trying to bring whatever your bias is into it, regardless of how you feel about Mr. Cucker or whatever. The reality of the situation.
Have I been saying that wrong?
You've been saying Cucker Carlson, yeah.
Oh wow, that's funny.
It's like Skellington. Once you start saying Skellington, you can't say skeleton ever again.
Yeah, no, I'll never say it again.
but the reality of the situation is, with 400 million of anything in civilian possession, the idea that the government entity would come and take them would be something that requires upheaval on the order of civil war. And of course, it's not something that the government's ever going to be apt to try, right? If the gun control side gets closer to this goal, it will only ever be death by a million cuts. And I'm sure they realize this, right?
Which is why they're proceeding exactly as they are. I mean, just and they hide the million cuts even in purported liberalizations in gun rights. See Florida's carry bill.
Right. And the like the biggest attacks that we've seen are like stuff like pistol braces,
right?
And like the amount of pushback, right? You've got 25 states attorneys general, like people who, as far as what they have to do to keep their jobs or whatever, they've got better things to do and or could be doing nothing, and they'd be just fine. And they're like, yeah, no, that's not going to fly. The notion of that guns would be rounded up is kind of silly, unless it's in like a million cuts sort of scenario where they're going one by one, classification by classification. You're doing something like Canada or Australia have historically relied on, which was more or less successful for them. Although
it was not very successful.
It was successful from a standpoint of like they got their bans and they drastically reduced the amount of the guns that they were specifically after.
Yeah, they also collected mostly barrels and broken actions.
Right. And of course, the funny thing about Australia being they currently have more guns now than they did before their buyback, where they quote unquote bought back all the guns.
Right.
And then, of course, I like this statistic just because it's so interesting. But looking back at the past 10 years, there has not been a single month in the U.S. in the past 10 years where we haven't sold more guns than Australia, quote unquote, bought back total in their big gun buyback. We sell more guns a month than they bought back in their buy back all the guns buyback. So like the notion that America could even have a federal gun buyback is just laughable. It would do the logistics behind it don't make sense. The financials behind it don't make sense. And I don't think that there's really not the political appetite for it, because even more and more you see, while deep down the gun grabbery politicians probably would favor a ban on handguns, they're not able to say it because it's like the political appetite for a ban on handguns is like gone these days. Certainly in comparison to where it was like in the 90s, you had groups like Ban Handguns Incorporated was the name of gun control groups, and people were cool with that. Which is, I don't remember if that's Brady or Everytown now. It was Brady. That was the pre-Brady group. Yeah, Ban Handguns Corporation. The political appetite for that sort of thing is like very much dried up, and part of that's culture war, and part of that's people's opinions and minds shift with time. But certainly the route we're seeing with constitutional carry sort of things going, perhaps if we see challenges to the NFA succeed via the pistol brace thing, we may end up with this same sort of thing where people become less hostile to the idea of the salty weapons, because we see handguns are statistically much more likely to be used in crime than assault weapons, but the appetite, the national appetite for a ban on handguns isn't there. Well, it's gone, and also it's now like very right. The Supreme Court's kind of the Supreme Court's kind of told you, yeah, you shouldn't do this anyway. Don't do that, yeah.
But we've also never really seen that type of prohibition in this country. I mean, some states have gotten close, right? But it never came around to the round them up type thing. Right. I'm not saying they wouldn't enjoy it, right? Or not even saying that they wouldn't want to do it, right? I'm not saying that isn't their intent, but I think they're not stupid, right? At the end of the day, they care more about getting reelected than they do about their like deep down policy goals, right? Because they have a job that they want to keep. Right. And there was a report from the Marshall Project
recently. I think it's called the Marshall Project, but they were doing a lot of the reporting that Mom at Arms over on Twitter had like previously done, where they were talking about how a bunch of public defenders and even prosecutors are coming forward in increasing numbers and saying like the sort of solution that currently exists for gun control is bad because it targets a particular class of people, and it's poor and minorities by and large. It doesn't stop any of the problems, and what we've done is criminalize possession. And the Marshall Project drew a lot of lines between the failed war on drugs and the failing war on guns, where targeting the you can target the supply side so long as it's upstream of when it gets into people's hands. Sometimes that can be effective, like controlling the flow of drugs into the country can help reduce the amount of illegal drugs that you're trying to stop in the country or whatever. Whether or not that's a meritorious goal is up to you, but that has proven there's some effectiveness to it. Once the drugs are in the country, though, you're fighting an uphill battle, right? Like you're trying to bail water up a waterfall from a standpoint of trying to stem the tide. And guns and drugs are very similar in this regard, where regulating the possession of them is just a losing proposition, especially whenever the possession of them you're targeting is just the simplest, purest possession, like the guy just has one. Not the guy had one and he had a drug with a gun, and that's double bad. Not like the guy was doing a crime, but he had a gun in his car, just like the simple possession where he's like, he's got one in his house. And more prosecutors and public attorneys are turning out to say, like, this isn't the solution. In fact, this just causes more mass incarceration, which I thought we were supposed to be against. And so it's kind of a breath of fresh air to see traditionally more liberal progressive groups, because Marshall Project has even said like people who are doing like drug traffickers or whatever should be getting lighter sentences. And that's something that people will disagree on for a long time. People directly profiting from people's suffering and addictions or whatever. Right. But it's interesting to see those sort of people now say like, yeah, but when this goes on with guns, it's not any better. We shouldn't be encouraging more laws surrounding possession. And I hope that's sort of the future of where the gun culture war goes, where if people we can
certainly help to push it that direction, because it is being logically consistent like that is only going to help. It's only going to help. But what else helps?
Wind chimes.
Another plug. So the MAF Corp.
Wind chime time.
The Wind Chime Corporation. You can buy the chime kit and components. We think you'll like these. Tac chime 5.5 inch rated. They are upper blasted or raw vending machine T-shirt. And the ATF ball. You can get all of these things. Sometimes they're on sale. Wow, it's really cool. Check out the website, maf-arms.com. And there's products available for sale. You should check it out. Use promotional code Foxtrot Romeo November, and you will get a discount off of the item that you are purchasing. Even when it's on sale, it also works. I'm telling you, it's a good deal.
Double sale coupon.
You got double sales coupons. So yeah, check it out. Oh, and I already talked about the reloading dies. I love this listing so much. But anyway, maf-arms.com, promotional code Foxtrot Romeo November. Buy the product. Buy the product. Purchase the item and be happy.
Or don't.
You will purchase
the happy. Product. You will purchase the product. Your happiness is up to you.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, thanks, MAF. All right. Next up, we had the first result on preliminary motions in the pistol brace lawsuits. As a lot of you guys know, I filed one here in Florida, and we have intentionally held off on this side of the motion because, well, one, the press of other business, and two, to kind of see what's been going on. So in Mock v. Garland, this was the Northern District of Texas case. The motion for preliminary injunction, which what that does is prevents the defendant from, which would be the government, right? Prevent the government from enforcing this rule while the lawsuit's happening. And those can be nationwide, was denied in the Northern District of Texas, Fort Worth Division case. And the logic was not that good. I'm going to be honest. The judge did quite a bit of backbending here.
Yeah, like I am only a rat para illegal, but I was sitting here reading this like, really? Like you wouldn't throw them even one bone? Right. And at the very end there's like a little sliver of a bone, a little bone splinter that he threw us. But
a bone spur.
Otherwise, he just crapped on like even some of these arguments I thought were like pretty clever. Like, there's no way, like, unless you're a fudge with a massive anti-gun bent, there's no way that you don't agree this is a good argument. This judge was a Bush appointee, which you would maybe think makes him so he's not gotten the anti-gun bent, but he crapped on the whole thing. Right.
What the final rule purports to do is identify the criteria by which enforcers in their application of the statute will make the determination of whether it's a rifle or not. It does not, as plaintiffs suggest, rewrite the definition itself. In short, it does not appear that the final rule so clearly contradicts the statutory definition of rifle that preliminary injunction relief is in order. Thus, plaintiffs have not carried their burden to show a substantial likelihood of success on the merits of their APA claim. The second, and so this argument, I wasn't 100%, I'm not going to say I didn't like any of the arguments, but the way this case argued the final rule's relationship to the initial notice of proposed rulemaking, the judge really crapped on it. Basically, the argument hinged on the points system, the points worksheet. And the judge says here, while the government abandoned the point system in response to the public comments criticizing that approach, the final rule's 6 criteria to be used for classifying firearms were derived from the NPRM and proposed worksheet. This is enough... with a typo, this is enough put the affected public on notice of the subjects and issues of the final rule would address, and indeed the very criteria the agency would employ in the classification of firearms. Thus, under these circumstances, based on the briefing before it, the court finds that the plaintiffs have not demonstrated substantial likelihood of success on the merits of this claim. Now, I think that the judge kind of skipped the step in the government's favor there.
Earlier in that little question, he says that, and he says this multiple times, that first off, the ATF doesn't ban anything in this rule, right? Which is debatable, but the judge is adamant that nothing gets banned and that no new rules are made. Like the judge just like hook, line, and sinkers the ATF's defense, which was that they knew, because the ATF was claiming, we didn't ban anything, we just subjected some stuff. Maybe we clarified what's subject to the NFA, which isn't a ban, it's just a regulation. Right. And the judge was very happy with that. He thought that was great. And then, the ATF, of course, has to say, because the ATF knows they can't claim in court that they're writing laws. And so they say, we didn't make any new laws. We just interpreted existing ones. And the judge is like, yeah, that's what they did. They just interpreted existing laws, which is, pants on head stupid in this particular case. Because if you're interpreting a new law, it probably shouldn't take you like 20 pages to interpret a couple sentences. And if it does, you're writing a law. Like if your explanation is longer than the thing you're explaining by that much, you've sort of breached what explanation is, and you're now way off into the land of like, I'm writing a whole new thing.
So here's where the bone spur is, right? It's in the Second Amendment claim, where basically what the judge is doing here is playing it safe and saying, hey, you haven't sufficiently briefed the historical analysis for a Bruin decision here. So
specifically to the NFA.
Right. Well, the agency's regulation of braced pistols under the NFA. So this is what he says. Given the necessarily condensed briefing offered in support of this motion, the court cannot, on minimal historical analysis provided, conclude that the final rule is substantially likely to violate plaintiff's Second Amendment rights, though the historical record may support such a result at the summary judgment stage. The briefing presently before the court is not sufficient to justify the extraordinary remedy of preliminary injunctive relief. Which, I think the big thing here, right? There's a big element in favor of preliminary injunctive relief, and that's preservation of the status quo. And it seems that the judge just didn't really care.
No, he didn't care at all.
Yeah. So I don't think that this doesn't tell us much about how the other ones are going to go.
Right. It's not game over. I think there's 7 other cases.
I think SAP has 2.
Yes.
On their own. GOA's got one. Then there's those guys. Whatever.
25 states, and I think there's one in Connecticut too. But that's that seems like a smaller. In the New Jersey. Yeah, and a couple of those also have motions for preliminary injunctions. I think on April 1st we may be knowing about another one of them, and then in 4 weeks from now we might be knowing about another. But they'll continue to roll in, and that people who are worried. Right. It only takes one, which is the important thing. And people were worried about this, this decision coming out of Texas being bad for the other cases. There is another case that is in the same district as Texas. And that one's probably in rocky waters at this point as a result of that. So it's not binding. So this decision isn't binding anywhere else. No other judge has to follow this. But a judge in the same district, unless that judge was looking to knock this ban down, right? If he's got any doubt, is looking for any excuse to side with the ATF, all he has to do is be like, "Oh, this other judge said this, so I agree." So like it would take some, activism, but activism in our favor for a judge to for a judge in that same district.
So you know what the definition of judicial activism is, right?
What's that?
It's a ruling you disagree with.
Oh yeah, of course.
But anyway, next up, we got some good news. North Carolina. Carolina.
They ditched their pistol permit purchase.
They ditched their pistol permit regime. Yeah, pistol permit purchase requirement. Pistol purchase permit requirement, which was quite expressly intended just to keep people who look different from acquiring handguns. But it kind of stayed on the books as a way for the local sheriff, the local Unter sheriff, to steal $5 from you. But yeah, for the first time in quite a while, the legislature in North Carolina overrode a gubernatorial veto. The first since 2018. The House voted 71-46 to enact the bill, which eliminates the longstanding permit system that longstanding. Come on now. Don't write like that. Permit system requiring sheriffs.
Longstanding since when?
Yeah. Requiring sheriffs to perform character evaluations and criminal history checks of pistol applicants. The Senate overrode Governor checks. Yeah. The Senate overrode Governor Roy Cooper's veto in a party line vote on Tuesday. The permit repeal takes effect immediately. So cool. Bill supporters say the sheriff's screening process for handguns was no longer necessary in light of significant updates to the NICS system. They also argue that the permit system wasn't very effective at preventing criminals from obtaining guns. The North Carolina Sheriff's Association supports the repeal in light of the national system updates, but its current president does not. So that's fine, I guess. What's lastly fine? You see this? I got a sticker.
The Patriot Page Company.
The Patriot Page Company. Patriotic Patch Co. They don't just do patches.
Patriotic Patch Pistol Permit.
Patriotic Pistol Permit Purchase Program.
Patch.
Patch. Yeah.
Of the Month Club.
Yeah. They got stickers as well. You guys can check out this website. It's patriotpatch.co. They have been a long-time supporter of this show. They are a long-time supporter of the Second Amendment. You know how you know they support your rights? Because they got banned on almost every social media. Drop is live. What do we got? Another Poke Wars. Isn't that Lucario? Yeah. Lucario.
With his classic green lightsaber.
Yeah, Lucario Skywalker. This is really the Poke Wars. They're doing a new patch every now and again. And yeah, Lucario, I think that Lucario is one of the... there's more fan artwork about that Pokemon character than many others. So if you are a Lucario fan...
than two.
Yeah. If you are a Lucario fan, hey, you might want to go on there and purchase this patch from the Patriotic Patch Pistol Permit Purchase Program patch
company.
Yeah, use promotional code TWIG10, TWIG10, and get a discount on your Lucario hobby fan patch that you want there. But yeah, guys, Patriot Patch Co. Good company, good people. Support them. They support the show. Check it out. Thank you for everything. But yeah, I'm exhausted. I've got trial coming up in a couple of weeks. Yeah, that's going to be great.
Do you think that they're going to bring up your tweets?
I don't care. But it's.
I said it and I'll say it again.
I did say it. What do you want me to do? Oh, Sam. You've brought me.
Oh, look. The important historical artifact.
Did you hear it? She said, I figured you'd want that. Oh. She also brought me another important historical artifact.
Yeah, the Dunkaroos.
Thank you, Sam. All right.
You call her
I'll
Sam.
cut that onto a different part. So what you were saying, people
say it again.
It's one thing. I had a couple of regrets from that. The one regret from that thing was not, and you know what's funny? You and I were talking in the Discord.
Yep.
And by the way, if you want to join the Discord, one, I'll warn you, it's a PvP arena. Two, give me money, join the Patreon, and you can join the Discord. But we were talking in the Discord, and you specifically said they're going to bring up your fuck cops tweet.
Yeah, I was like, I looked through all of his social media, like thinking, oh, they're going to look him up, because of course they will. And then I was like, what does he have that subjection one? And it's like, it's anime stuff. They're not going to bring up anime stuff because they'll seem weird then. And I'm like, this is the one, because this one has no contacts attached to it and would make him look bad if you didn't understand that. It would make him look bad to like turbo boomers or whatever if you didn't have any context. And then like, I expected if they'd share the tweet, they would remove the date from the tweet, because you can see that it's obviously date and time stamped right after the Nichols body cam footage was removed. Or, not removed, but posted. And no, they did. They left the date on there. Like they gave. They
even specifically told me the date.
Right. It's like, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I regret. I regret that. I also regret not asking. But no, I don't regret the tweet or anything. I regret not asking, would you like me to read it? Because he said 3 times, can you see this? I regret not saying, yes, would you like me to read it? And I regret not. I regret not like saying Nichols' name.
Right.
Because it was actually my friend had prepped me for this. He said, they're going to say something insane. You just have to like repeat in your head, that's not the subject, you, like quickly dispense, and that's not the subject of today's hearing. And so I said that, and then I was like, damn it. Like, you know, I got the worst esprit d'escalier that I'd ever had. Right. But yeah, it worked out well for me. I'm happy with it. I got my thing. Wow. It has a lot more likes now, by the way.
Yeah, it's gone up just a little bit.
Yeah, just gone up a little bit. But yeah. All right. Go to the order, Mr. Ivan. Anything to report?
Oh, I guess the Illinois' update is very quick this time. There's no changes to report. Things are still upcoming. April 12th, I think, is oral arguments for the motion for preliminary injunction. The future is still coming. Yeah, April 12th, I think, is the oral arguments for the preliminary injunctions for the federal cases, which are the ones that are probably going to be the most successful. So sometime after April 12th, Mr. Fudgy Judgy could drop his Fudgy. He'll drop his answer, and then we'll see where we go from there. On one of the federal cases in the North, it was filed in state court, and then the state defendant said this has to go to federal court because it's got a Second Amendment claim. The first thing they do in federal court is file a motion saying they don't have standing to have this in federal court. It has to go back to state court, which, as you can imagine, made the judge really mad. And so the judge asked them to correct it. And instead of like correcting it, they're like, are you sure we should correct it? And so the judge is now wanting to censure them. The judge is wanting to slap these lawyers. He wants to slap the lawyers on the wrist, and all in this same argument. If you remember, whenever Pritzker signed the bill, he's like, states attorneys have no choice but to enforce the law. They don't get to pick and choose what laws they enforce. Well, whenever they were saying that the people who in federal court were suing them didn't have standing. They were saying that states' attorneys don't have standing to sue them because states' attorneys don't have to enforce the law. So that's your typical clown world thing where the politician lizard's views on certain things depends on who they're standing in front of.
Yes,
or a judge.
Right, and you know what was funny? Like, so going back to that stupid hearing, like at one of the recesses that were caused by the kerfuffle, I walked up and a bunch of people were sitting, like a bunch of members and stuff were sitting there talking, and I was like, so guys, I thought I was going to reach across the aisle with that tweet. And none of the Republicans laughed. They didn't like it.
They're like, we can't have this guy back here. What the hell? This guy's a loose cannon.
Yeah, but it was really funny. But it was cool. The staffers that brought me there were really nice. The representatives were nice. Like, they were cool people. But, but it was fun.
You can take a Florida man out of the swamp, but you can't take the swamp out of a Florida man.
You can move the Florida man to a different swamp, but he still smells like the first scarier swamp. All right. Well, that's it for today, everyone. As always, we will see you next time.